In airport operations, you are taught very early on in your career to paint a picture of what is going on around you, to expect the unexpected, to maintain a level of situational awareness. A simple runway closure could lead to an airplane coming towards you if one or more people do not have the same situational awareness and understanding of what is going on, and what can turn a normal night into a newsworthy night. This is the story of Southwest Flight 4805. My name is Joe Wildcat. Welcome to the Cold and Dark channel. So on June 29th, a report was posted on the Aviation Herald, thanks to Simon Hradecky over at the Aviation Herald, for an event that occurred on 6/25, a Southwest Airlines Boeing 737-700 registration November 7861 Juliet performing flight Southwest 4805 from Portland, Maine to Baltimore, Maryland, departed Portland's runway 29 at 5:43 local, when both runway and tower were still closed, both to be reopened at 5:45, so 2 minutes after the departure. The aircraft continued on to Baltimore for a landing without further incidents. The airport personnel can be heard on tower frequency, opening the runway just about 2 minutes after the Southwest departure and asking tower whether they could get a hold of the Southwest airplane that had just taken off over them while they were doing a runway inspection. Tower responded that they never talked to them and the tower wasn't open yet. According to the NOTAMs, only Portland's runway 1836 would have been available at that time. The FAA released a statement on June 29, 2024. Southwest Airlines Flight 4805 departed from a temporarily closed runway in Portland at the Portland International Jetport on Tuesday, June 25th. The airport vehicle exited the runway before the plane began its takeoff roll. The FAA and NTSB are investigating the event, which occurred at 5:45 local time. So as you can see, this is the exact NOTAM that was issued. Portland runway 1129 closed, excluding crossing and taxi Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Basically, what that's saying is the runway is closed to basically aircraft other than from getting from the terminal to runway 36 or from, let's say, the departure end of runway 18 to the terminal. Basically, no aircraft taking off. Weather did not play a factor in this. As you could see, visibility was pretty good, and cloud layer a few. In the next slide, we're going to listen to our wonderful friend Victor at VASAVIATION. He compiled all the radio transmissions into a really, really good video. I have always been a fan of VASAVIATION since he, at one point, had me on there as I was working an event at one of my airports. But I've always liked his videos. So this is his video. We're going to listen to it, and we'll discuss it afterwards.
Portland International Jetport, Portland, Maine. 0931 Zulu.
Portland Town Approach Control, hours of operation are 0545, advisory frequency 120.9er. Runway 1129er is closed. Runway 1836 is noise sensitive. For information or clearance, contact Boston Center on 128.2.
Portland CTAF, Riccio 3516, we pushed off 1 Bravo, making a right turn onto a right, then a left on an Alpha, right across 29, over to departure into 36, Riccio 3515, Portland. Portland CTAF, Riccio 3515, crossing closed runway 1129 for 36 departure. At Charlie. At Charlie, departure. Clear traffic, Brickyard 3616, taking runway 36. Portland traffic. Portland area traffic, Brickyard 3616, taking off runway 36, Portland traffic.
Southwest, are you on frequency? Portland track, Brickyard 5760, trailing at Southwest, taxiing to runway 36 via Charlie, crossing 2911 at Charlie, Portland traffic.
Runway 36, 2.3, climbing 10,000.
Brickyard 3516, Boston Center, you are radar contact, climb and maintain flight level 280.
Flight level 280, Brickyard 3615. 3516, it's an early morning. Flight level 280.
Center Southwest 4805. Southwest 4805, Boston Center.
Yes, sir, on the ground at Portland will be number 1, runway 29 for departure.
Roger, stand by. Southwest 4805, the mail altitude on departure, climb and maintain 4,000. You are released for departure. Clearance void, if not off in 3 minutes. If not off in 3 minutes, advise Boston Center.
So there's the first hole in the Swiss cheese model, the Boston Center Controller. Now look, the Boston Center Controller is covering every airport in their airspace, so they may not exactly be aware of the runway closures, stuff like that. But that could have been the first indication that, hey, something's going on at Portland. We just had somebody depart at 36, and now we got a Southwest holding short of runway 29. Let's take a look. But yeah, it fell through the crack. I'm not going to fault the Boston Center Controller for this. And you kind of heard the Brickyard, this other guy or individual. I don't want to say kind of confused. You can kind of hear it saying they're following Southwest, and then we're going to go to runway 36, be a Charlie, cross runway 39 or runway 1129, and taxi down to runway 36 for departure. As you could hear, there was no Southwest was not making radio calls. Now, at an uncontrolled airport or a non-towered airport, radio conversations, radio transmissions are voluntary. So, as bad as this is going to sound, if you don't really want to talk to anybody, you don't have to. But in a situation like this, it would be pivotal to kind of keep everything safe and to kind of go, everybody else is departing 36. Maybe the runway isn't open yet. So then you can key up and say, hey, airport ops, is anybody from airport ops on? Like, yeah. Hey, is runway 29 open? Say, nope, we're just doing our final inspection. We'll have it open here in about 2 minutes. Or whatever it is. Clearly that didn't happen. So there's a lot of checks and balances in the first part of this video that you can see that didn't stop this from happening.
No later than 5 minutes of attention.
Cover that change and out.
So, and also you heard, so this was at 43. You heard clearance void for 3 minutes. If not off by 3 minutes, let Boston know. If not by 5, with intentions. Something like that. And what that means is basically your clearance time, you basically be ready to go. And you have 3 minutes to get airborne. Obviously, at this point, they're not going to wait till 45 when they don't see any markers. They don't see anything that could indicate that that runway is closed. So not only do they get a altitude change, so they went from, I don't know what the departure typically is, but they got a new altitude of 4,000 feet, and they also got told their clearance time was relatively small. Usually you'd have it between 5-10 minutes, or yeah, typically about 5 minutes. So they got a 3-minute thing, but it's no big deal to them because valid for 3 minutes and we're ready to go, as they say here.
To the 4,000 feet, boys, 3 minutes, we're ready to go.
Portland International Airport vehicle, just be advised, we're seated for an on-time opening here of runway 29er, but it's going to remain closed until schedule 545.
The Southwest Portland 29, this is still closed, it is a vehicle on the runway currently.
So as you just heard there, even though the runway is still closed and the tower controller is still closed, he sees what's going on, and he makes one final attempt to prevent this from happening. Now again, you might be saying, "Oh, why didn't the Southwest jet be listening to the airport frequency?" Well, he's already switched over to the center controller, so that broadcast went out into the space. It was never heard by Southwest, from my understanding. And that is why it's kind of important to, if you are going to operate in an uncontrolled airport, you at least have you may not have to be talking to on the frequency, but you have it in the number 2 radio. The 737 has at least 2 radios, I believe. So you can kind of tune, hey, this is the airport traffic. This is the Boston center controller. We're going to put Boston in number 1, put the airport here, just in case, so we can kind of make sure we're aware of what's going on. Again, situational awareness is key in aviation.
And the Southwest Portland 29, just so you know, there is a vehicle on the runway, so when it is closed.
So there's number 2, the second attempt by the tower controller to inform Southwest that runway 29 is closed and that there is a vehicle out there. At this point, if I'm the vehicle, I'm hearing this, I'm going, okay, that's 2 calls, no response. I'm going to vacate the runway, because clearly something isn't happening. Some safety measure isn't happening that is causing this miscommunication.
Right, warning them.
Boston Center, Brickyard 57 Associates.
So, just for kind of clearance here, that was the ops vehicle telling the tower. We now go to the next airplane talking to Boston Center. So again, they're on 2 separate frequencies. Which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's how it goes in uncontrolled airfields. You heard the ops person say, "I tried to warn him," meaning that he was going to be cleared, but this is going to be probably a possible pilot deviation for taking off on a closed runway.
She's number 1 at runway 36 for departure at Portland. Brickyard 5760 Boston Center, Roger, just continue to hold. I got 1 rolling now. Copy that.
Center Brickyard 3516A, ride reports ahead and in the climb smooth for us on the way up so far.
Brickyard 3516, you're the first Portland departure I've had this morning.
Magical. Well, we'll let you know how it goes.
All right, thanks.
Center Southwest 4805,
Southwest 4805, you're our radar contact, just 1 mile west of Portland, climb and maintain, flight level 340.
So again, at this point, in the Southwest cockpit, I guarantee they're not even. To them, there's nothing wrong.
Southwest 4805, you're...
To the tower, or to the center controller, nothing's gone wrong. It's just business as usual. And you might be saying, well, how did that Boston controller not know that Portland runway 29 was still closed? Again, it's kind of there's a phenomenon that basically having an expectation bias that if somebody as skilled as Southwest or as skilled as any of these mainline or even the regional guys, they have enough flight hours to know how to operate that aircraft and how to fly it correctly for the most part. Obviously mistakes still happen, but they trust that, hey, if Southwest is taking off at 29, hey, it's got to be open. So to them, it's business as usual.
You're already to contact just 1 mile west of Portland, climb and maintain, flight level 340. 340, Can you just take off a closed runway? Yeah.
So not really sure who that is, whether it was not really sure if that was this guy talking on the Boston Center frequency, or if they were talking on the airport frequency. But I believe it was this guy asking, did he just take off of a closed runway? And somebody, whether it was the center controller or the airport itself, responded, yes, he did.
Good morning, Portland Jetport Aircraft Control Services is into 0545 local class Charlie Airspace. Is in effect. Latest information on the other side.
SSL Aircraft, Portland Approach Control Services.
So I suspect
Resumed at 0545 local Portland class Charlie Airspace now in effect. Latest information. Romeo current, landing and departing runway 29.
Southwest 4805 Boston.
so. As you can see, that other airplane departed. At least that's what it's illustrated here. And that the tower at 5:45 opened up and resumed normal operations at the Portland International Jetport. At this time, the airport is not talking to Boston Center to basically inform Southwest of their mess up.
Go ahead. Just trying to check, did you depart runway 28, 29? We did depart 29. Yep.
Now, if I'm in the Southwest jet and they ask me that, my intent is going to go up a little bit, I think, and go, huh, why are they asking? He then follows it up with,
Yeah, that runway was closed. I thought it opened at 45. There was no markings there anywhere. Right, it did open at 45, but you departed at 42. That's not what we're showing, but okay.
so to a certain extent, this is one of the nicest interactions, I think, for a possible pilot deviation. All the pilot said is, hey, according to so they have on the FMS, their data link system shows what time they depart, and maybe it showed 45. Maybe the time was off or whatever. But they documented, hey, this is what time they departed. Hey, this is what time we made contact. They have the tapes and the timestamps to show that. So, hey, they might have thought, based on their time and their clock, hey, we're good. But in actuality, they weren't. So he mentions there was no markings or no nothing out there on the runway. So we will go over that in the next couple slides. But typically, when we close a runway, you put a thing called the runway closure marker, and I'll show it at the end here. And that basically indicates that the runway is closed. Well, the issue is if you're about to reopen it, first of all, you got to remove them. Then you do your runway inspection to ensure nothing was left there, that the lighted X didn't fall apart and leave bits and pieces out there. So that close to opening time, there would not be any indication that runway was closed. You would have to just be listening to the frequency, in which they clearly were not. So again, that's the statement that the FAA. So I'm assuming this is going to be classified as a runway incursion. So as you can see, a runway incursion by the FAA's definition is any occurrence at an aerodrome involving the incorrect presence of an aircraft, vehicle, or person on a protected area of a surface designated for the landing and takeoff of an aircraft. So a lot of people only think that runway incursions can only happen on the little piece of pavement that the runway is actually on, or that the piece of pavement. No, it includes the safety area. So if you go past the whole bar, if you enter the safety area in the grass, you're entering the runway, and if you don't have permission to be out there, that's a runway incursion. There are 4 categories of runway incursions. There's a category A, which is a serious incident, collision was narrowly avoided. A B, where the separation decreased and there was significant potential for a collision, which may result in time-critical corrective evasive response to avoid a collision. A C, the incident is characterized with ample time and distance to avoid a collision. Or D, the incident meets the definition of a runway incursion, such as the incorrect presence of a single vehicle, person, or aircraft on a protected area, but with no immediate safety consequences. So what I usually tell people, or when I used to teach a class on this, a category D is basically there's no airplanes within 50 miles of this airport, and yet there's still a person out there when they're not supposed to be. There's no safety threat there. There's no threat of somebody getting hit by an airplane, but they're just somewhere they're not supposed to be. If you ask me, I think this is either an A or a B. I don't think it was an A, simply because I believe the airport operations person was off the runway by the time the airplane started rolling. But it was close enough where kind of a critical corrective evasive response had to be made to avoid the collision by the airport operations personnel. So there are 3 types of runway incursions that you can have. You have obviously the operational error. These are actions made by the air traffic controller that lead to a incursion. So let's say the tower controller clears somebody for takeoff, while that person's still on the roll, clears another person downfield to cross the runway. Basically, tower controller has to go, hey, airplane on the runway, stop. That's an operational error or incident. You have a pilot deviation. So crosses an active runway en route to a gate without a clearance, takes off from a closed runway, lands on a closed runway. Basically what this is. So this would be a pilot deviation, I believe. And then you have a VPD, or vehicle pedestrian deviation, meaning that a vehicle or a person got onto the runway somehow. Typically, as airport operators and operations personnel, those are the ones that we deal with a lot. These are fairly few and far between. And yet, here's a good example of one that we have. So I was mentioning before that we have means to show that the runway is actually closed instead of just putting it on the ADAS. And the main way is this picture right here. This is a runway closure marker, otherwise known as a lighted X. And what it symbolizes is obviously that the runway is closed. If the runway was permanently closed, or a long-term closure, they would put painted X's on the runway. But for a temporary closure, obviously, you're not going to have the time or the availability to paint X's on the runway every night for a runway closure, but the runway opens up in the morning. So you deploy these X's to kind of serve as a, hey, there's a runway X. Something isn't right, we're going around. Or, hey, if you're about to line up on the runway, hey, there's a lighted X right here. Again, as I stated in the previous slides, if they were doing their final inspection before they reopen, of course, those lighted X's aren't going to be there. I'm not sure if it is standard procedure for them to put the lighted X out. At least it was at my couple airports that I've been to. Was that anytime we closed a runway for a significant amount of time, we would stick these lighted X's out there. And again, doing the final inspection, you do it after your final inspection after you remove the lighted X's, just in case something falls off the lighted X's. So they, as far as I can hear, the airport operations person was doing what they should have been doing. They are checking to make sure that the runway was good enough to be used. And they were advising Tower that, hey, we're doing our final inspection right now. I suspect we'll be done in about 3 minutes. As you can see, what was a simple non-incident will be determined by the FAA whether or not this was a runway incursion and what disciplinary actions. I don't believe there's gonna be any disciplinary actions to the crew of the Southwest Jet. They may have to go get a stern talking to from the chief pilot. But I don't think they're gonna lose their license or whatever their careers on a simple. Hey, we thought our airplane said it was 5:45. We got to get going. We went. Something like that. So that is the story of Flight 4805. We'll see what kind of comes out of it. If there's any updates, I'll post a second video. From all of us at the Cold and Dark channel, my name is Jet Wildcat. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.